Jasmine Crockett, a young, ambitious congresswoman, entered the race for ranking member of the Oversight Committee, with a bold promise, strong leadership in a moment of national urgency. She crafted the image of a righteous warrior, but whispers soon followed backroom deals, traded votes, favors exchanged in the dark. More troubling still, her three rivals, most notably Robert Garcia, a man with whom she'd clashed, before each found themselves targeted by sudden scandals. Was it all coincidence, or was someone pulling strings in the shadows? What began as a routine internal contest was rapidly mutating into a ruthless playboard. Blows landed, counter moves followed. The only certainty was that when the dust settled, one would seize victory, while another would see their true face unmasked before the public. Jasmine Crockett sat in her office, the dim glow of a desk lamp cutting across her face. On her laptop screen, the spreadsheet showed a brutal number 3 votes. Only 3 pledged out of the 22 she needed to take the ranking member seat on the Oversight Committee. Her fingers tapped against the wooden desk, each strike like a war drum pounding her impatience deeper. 3, she muttered, her voice low, almost a growl. Too damn few. Marcus Tate, her chief of staff, stood in the corner, arms folded. His expression was calm, but his eyes betrayed concern. "It's early, Jasmine," he said. "Votes shift. You know that. Votes don't shift by themselves, Marcus." She snapped the laptop shut and rose blazer sharp across her shoulders, the posture of someone already marching to battle. They're moved, with leverage, with deals, with power. Marcus didn't argue. He'd seen her climb from a Dallas attorney to Congress brick by brick, fight by fight. But this was different. Oversight wasn't just another committee. It was the chamber of subpoenas, investigations, and political earthquakes. Jasmine didn't just want it. She needed it. She turned to the window overlooking the Capitol's south lawn. "Who's leading?" "Robert Garcia," Marcus answered. 12 votes, maybe 13. The conservatives love him. They call him stability. He's running the same race you are, and he's ahead. Stability. Jasmine scoffed, pivoting to face him. He's a placeholder, a rubber stamp. They don't need stability, they need a fighter. They need me. Marcus gave a small nod, but his doubt lingered. Garcia's got the machine behind him. You've got controversy. They respect you, Jasmine, but they don't trust you. Then make them need me. Her voice turned to steel. Find the swing votes, find their weaknesses. Everyone has a price. That night, Capitol Hill was deserted, save for the flicker of a few office lights. Jasmine slipped into a bar 2 blocks from Congress, the kind where lobbyists and staff traded favors over $200 whiskey. Across from her sat Congressman Derek Wells, a wiry man with a nervous twitch in his left eye. His was one of the undecided votes, exactly the kind Jasmine meant to claim. "You're asking me to bet on you?" Jasmine Wells said, rolling his glass between his palms. She leaned in, her tone low, almost intimate. "Do you want to stay invisible forever? Or do you want a seat at the table when the decisions that matter get made?" He narrowed his eyes. "What are you offering?" She smiled, sharp as a blade. "What do you want?" The congressman hesitated, then leaned closer. "Chairmanship of the Energy Subcommittee. My district's bleeding jobs. I need something tangible to bring home." Jasmine didn't flinch. "Done. But you don't just vote for me. You bring your friends. The ones on the fence, you show them I'm viable." Wells' eye twitched faster. "You're playing with fire. Garcia's people won't like this. Let them choke on it," she said, draining her glass. "I didn't come here to make friends." The next morning, Jasmine's phone buzzed. An unknown number. One message. "Careful. Garcia knows." Her pulse quickened. Someone was watching. Someone was always watching. She deleted it, slipped the phone back into her pocket, but the unease lingered like a shadow. In the house cafeteria, every handshake was a move on the board. a nod to a congresswoman from Ohio, a whispered promise to a veteran lawmaker from Nevada. Favors, PAC money, influence. She laid them out like bait. By noon, Marcus had an update: 7 votes. Progress, but far from enough. "You're rattling them," Marcus said as they walked the marble halls of Rayburn. "Garcia's camp is in panic. I hear they're digging into your past old lawsuits' donors, anything they can weaponize. Let them dig." Jasmine's tone was calm, though her mind was spinning. "They'll find nothing." Marcus grabbed her arm. "This isn't Dallas. You're challenging the system itself, and here no one forgives that." She tore free fire in her eyes. "Good. Let them hate me, as long as they fear me." That night in a nondescript hotel by the Potomac, Jasmine met a man who called himself Elliot. He wasn't a lawmaker, wasn't staff. He was a shadow with a briefcase and a gravel voice. He slid a folder across the table sealed with tape. Information, he said, on Garcia, his votes, his deals, his mistakes. Use it wisely. Jasmine stared at the folder, her pulse pounding. This was the line. Once she crossed it, there would be no way back. She thought of her father, a preacher who had raised her to fight for what was hers, no matter the cost. She tore the tape and opened it. Inside, under the dim hotel light, secrets spilled, shady payments, closed-door meetings, a carefully buried scandal. Enough to topple Garcia if she played it right. But she knew every secret was a double-edged blade, and one slip could cut her own throat. She looked up at Elliot, her voice hard. "What else?" He smiled without warmth. "You want more? The price gets higher." "I'll pay," she said, rising to her feet. "But if you cross me, you'll regret it." Elliot only shrugged and vanished into the dark. Jasmine clutched the folder. It felt less like paper than like a live grenade. From that moment on, the game had changed. She wasn't just fighting for a seat. She was fighting for control. And in Washington, control always came with a cost, one only the ruthless were willing to pay. Jasmine Crockett stood before a forest of microphones, camera flashes bursting like stars in the night. The hall in downtown Washington, D.C., was packed: activists, everyday citizens, all hanging on her every word. She wore a deep blue suit, hair tied, high voice, ringing with conviction. "We need an oversight committee that works for the people, for justice," she declared, gripping the podium. "I am here to fight for you, for the truth." The crowd erupted. Applause crashed like surf. On Twitter, our Jasmine for Justice surged to the top of trending. Headlines crowned her, the fresh wind in Washington, a young fighter unafraid to break the mold. But behind the lights, Jasmine was someone else entirely. Inside the black SUV, leaving the venue curtains drawn tight, she sat beside Marcus Tate, eyes on the iPad in his hands. "The public adores you," Marcus said. "But we're still short 8 votes. Robert Garcia just picked up 2 more. Jasmine stared out the tinted window, her expression cold. "Garcia is the past. I'm the future. And futures don't come free, they're bought." Marcus froze, then looked up. "How fast are you planning to push this? We've already promised more than we can deliver." She didn't answer. Instead, she opened her phone, scrolling through a coded message from Elliot. The folder he'd given her sat heavy in her bag. Harrington's secrets, illicit money, a buried affair, suspicious votes. Enough to destroy him if unleashed. But every page was a razor edge. Ramirez Jasmine said flatly. "What does she want?" Marcus sighed. "Budget committee seat. And a bill on immigrant protections. She won't be easy to buy." "Then find her weakness," Jasmine snapped. "Family, friends, whatever it takes. We're not just buying votes, we're buying loyalty." That night, at a Georgetown fundraiser, Jasmine glided through the ballroom in a sleek gown, shaking hands, smiling, whispering coded promises. To the public, she was justice incarnate. Here, she was a broker of power. She found Senator Clara Hensley silver-haired, sharp-eyed, sipping wine. Hensley controlled 3 crucial votes. "You're bold," Jasmine Hensley said. "But Garcia is steady. What do you bring besides speeches?" Jasmine leaned in, voice low. "I bring the future. Garcia keeps things stagnant. Stagnation is death. I can give you a seat on the party's strategy council. And when I win, your bill moves first." Hensley studied her wary. "You're playing a dangerous game. Lose and you'll be crushed. Then help me not lose." Jasmine shot back, gaze locked. 3 votes. "You won't regret it." Hensley's silence stretched. Then she gave the slightest nod. "I'll think about it." Back at her office, Jasmine opened an anonymous email. "Garcia is tracking you. Be careful." Her heart pounded, but her face stayed composed. She pulled Elliot's folder from her bag. Names, numbers, secrets, each line another bullet. She called Marcus, traced the sender, and set up Ramirez. "I want her on my side by Friday." Marcus hesitated. "If Harrington finds out, he could drag the FBI into this. You're walking a wire, Jasmine." "Then don't let me fall," she said, voice like steel. The next morning, Jasmine appeared on Morning Pulse, her words soaring with calls for truth and justice. Viewers adored her social media lit up. But once the cameras shut off, she slipped into a backroom meeting in suburban D.C. A man in a gray suit slid a USB stick across the table. "Ramirez intel. Her brother's in legal trouble. Use it. She won't be able to refuse." Jasmine's pulse hammered. Blackmail. But in Washington, the line between principle and victory was razor thin. She pocketed it. "Thank you," she said coolly. By the weekend, Ramirez had fallen in line after a private meeting, though her wary eyes betrayed the coercion. Jasmine gained 3 more votes, but whispers spread with equal speed ambition, turning to accusations of manipulation. A headline blared, "Jasmine Crockett. Hero or schemer." She brushed the paper aside. "They can call me whatever they want," she said calmly, "as long as I win." When Marcus left the room, she tapped out a message to Elliot. "Need more on Garcia. Everything you've got." Her heart thudded. The mask of justice still held, but the predator underneath was breaking through. That night, another anonymous email flashed on her screen. "Garcia is digging. Watch your back." She deleted it, but the feeling clung to her skin. Garcia, Lynch, Mendoza. They were all pieces on the board, and Jasmine knew to survive she had to move first, at any cost. Jasmine Crockett sat in her office, the glow of her laptop casting sharp edges across her face. On the desk, a cup of coffee sat cold beside the USB drive the man in gray had handed her days earlier. She scrolled through a confidential dossier, narrowing her eyes, as each line revealed more: Stephen Lynch, Carla Mendoza, Robert Garcia, her 3 biggest rivals for ranking member of the Oversight Committee. Each had weaknesses, and Jasmine knew how to exploit them. Marcus Tate slipped into the room, shutting the door with a soft click. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Have you seen the news? Lynch is being mocked as a living relic in Politico. Mendoza's accused of taking oil money. And Garcia?" Marcus hesitated, shaking his head. "A no-name blog claims he embezzled campaign funds. No proof, but social media's exploding." Jasmine didn't look up, fingers tapping her keyboard. "Good," she said, voice calm, almost chilling. "They're rattled." Marcus crossed his arms, tension etched on his face. "This isn't random. People are whispering. They're pointing at you. If anyone traces the source, they won't." Jasmine cut in, finally raising her gaze, eyes sharp as a blade. "Not if we're careful." But even she wasn't certain. Elliot, the shadow who supplied her intel, was a ghost. No real name, no past, just dossiers and encrypted messages that vanished after reading. She knew she was playing a dangerous game where every move risked her entire career. At Capitol Hill the next morning, the air felt heavy, like a storm waiting to break. In the Oversight Committee chamber, Veteran Congressman Stephen Lynch, silver-haired and stooped, thundered at his colleagues. "I've served this House for 2 decades," he barked, jabbing a newspaper with his finger. "And now I'm called outdated. This isn't journalism. This is a coordinated hit." Across the table, Carla Mendoza gripped her water glass tight. "And me? Last week I was the champion of the environment. Now I'm smeared as a corporate sellout. Who's orchestrating this?" Her eyes swept the room, lingering for a heartbeat on Jasmine, who sat motionless, face unreadable. Robert Garcia, Jasmine's chief rival, shot to his feet, fury shaking his voice. "Don't play innocent, Jasmine. We all know whose game this is. These rumors didn't drop by accident." He turned on her, eyes burning. "You think you can take us down with cheap tricks?" Jasmine offered him a faint, icy smile. "I don't know what you're talking about, Robert. I've been too busy campaigning to waste time on gossip." She rose smoothly, blazer crisp on her shoulders. "But if you're looking for enemies, try the mirror. Politics isn't for the faint of heart." She walked out, leaving the chamber taut with tension. Behind the door, though her pulse raced, Garcia wasn't just angry, he was suspicious. And in Washington, suspicion was the first step to the truth. That night, Jasmine met Elliot in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of D.C. No lights, only the wind whistling through cracks in the walls. He stood half hidden in shadow, his face barely lit by the beam of her flashlight. Garcia's stirring trouble. Jasmine said, her voice low and sharp. "He's not just suspicious, he's digging." Elliot shrugged, his gravelly tone unbothered. "Let him dig. He'll find nothing but smoke. But if you want him silenced, I can arrange it." Jasmine stiffened. "Arrange, what do you mean?" Elliot's smile carried no warmth. "You know exactly what I mean. An accident. A bigger scandal to bury him. You choose." A chill ran down her spine. This wasn't just politics anymore. It was an invitation across the final line, one even she wasn't sure she wanted to cross. "I'll handle Garcia myself," she said firmly. Elliot nodded and slid another USB across the table. "Everything I have. Use it right, and Garcia never gets back up." She picked it up, the plastic drive heavy as a live grenade. "Once I use this, there's no going back." "In Washington, there's never going back," Elliot said, before vanishing into the shadows. The next morning, Jasmine stood at a community event in East D.C., shaking hands, listening to residents promising change. On social media, she was fire and hope, a fearless woman defying the system. But in her mind, names and numbers spun endlessly. Lynch Mendoza, Garcia Harrington. Each was a pawn. And she held the board. Afterward, Marcus pulled her aside, his face tight. "Garcia's talking to a reporter from the Hill. He claims he has evidence these attacks came from your camp. If he goes public, he has no evidence," Jasmine said flatly. "But if he wants to play dirty, I'll show him dirty." Marcus grabbed her arm, desperate. "Jasmine, stop. You're going too far. If Garcia finds anything, if he pushes back, you're finished." She yanked free, eyes blazing. "My career ends only if I let it end. Set up a meeting with Garcia. I'll talk to him myself." They met in a discreet Alexandria restaurant. Garcia sat across from her, eyes hard. "What do you want, Jasmine? Stop this or I go public?" Jasmine leaned in, her voice soft but sharp. "Public with what, baseless rumors? Or the fact you're terrified of losing to me?" His fists clenched. "I know this is you. Lynch Mendoza me, we all got hit the moment you fell short on votes. Too convenient, don't you think?" She smiled, though her pulse thundered. "If you want war, Robert, I'll give you war. But I'm offering you another option. Step aside. Back me. I'll guarantee you a prime seat on the committee. Otherwise, the rumors are just the beginning." Garcia's glare burned rage mixed with hesitation. "You think you can threaten me?" "This isn't a threat," she said, rising. "It's reality." That night, her phone buzzed with a message from Elliot. "Garcia just met with the FBI. Watch yourself." Jasmine's grip tightened around the phone. The ground beneath her felt like it was cracking. The game had never been deadlier. One misstep could bring it all down. But Jasmine Crockett never backed off. She slid the new USB into her laptop. Line after line, Garcia's secrets bled onto the screen, and she knew Robert Garcia was in her sights, and she would not stop until he fell. Robert Garcia sat in a cramped basement room of the Rayburn building, the fluorescent light etching deep lines across his forehead. Across from him were Stephen Lynch, hair disheveled and silver, and Carla Mendoza, her sharp eyes dulled by fatigue. Once bitter rivals in the fight for ranking member of the Oversight Committee, the three now sat at the same table, forced into an uneasy alliance by a common enemy, Jasmine Crockett. "We all know she's behind this," Garcia said, his voice low but cutting. He slid a packet of printouts across the table, screenshots of social media posts, anonymous articles, and an email implying Mendoza had taken oil money. These rumors didn't appear by chance. They were planted, and there's only one person who benefits. Lynch clenched the headline of a newspaper, "Lynch Too Old to Lead." His voice shook with anger. "I've been here 20 years. I've seen dirty tricks. But this is a campaign. Jasmine doesn't just want to win. She wants to destroy us." Mendoza tapped her fingers against the table. "I traced the first oil money piece. It started on a no-name blog, but it was boosted by a web of fake Twitter accounts. Somebody paid for that surge, and I'll bet it was Crockett's people." Garcia leaned in, his eyes burning. "We can't let her keep going. If she takes this seat, Oversight becomes her personal weapon. She doesn't care about justice or truth, only power." Lynch exhaled heavily, rubbing his temples. "But what do we have? Suspicions, hunches. We need proof, Robert. Proof that sticks." Garcia smirked, pulling a USB from his pocket. "I've started digging. One of my aides overheard a conversation between Jasmine's team and a shadow figure calls himself Elliot. I don't know who he is, but he's feeding her the dirt." Mendoza raised an eyebrow. "Overheard. Or were you recording?" Garcia shrugged. "No denial. This is Washington. You don't survive without tricks. I have the recording. Fuzzy, but enough to show she's working with an outside source. And there's more, an anonymous email to my office, warning that Jasmine's stockpiling information on me." Lynch frowned. "So what's the move? Straight to the press, or up the chain to leadership?" No, Mendoza cut in firm. "The press turns this into a circus. Leadership won't touch Jasmine without ironclad evidence. We need to handle it ourselves. Gather more. Track her. Find out who Elliot really is." Garcia nodded. "Agreed. But we tread carefully. Jasmine's not stupid. She knows we suspect. If we show our hand too soon, she'll strike back, and we'll be the ones falling." Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett sat in her office, eyes locked on her phone. A fresh message from Elliot Garcia is meeting with Lynch and Mendoza. They're working together. "Watch yourself." She gripped the phone, a noose tightening around her throat. Three rivals, once divided by ambition, now united against her. That was never part of the plan. She summoned Marcus Tate, her voice cold. "What's Garcia doing?" Marcus had just come from a meeting with a Hill aide, his face drawn. "He's digging Jasmine. He's already met with Lynch and Mendoza. They're pooling intel, trying to trace the leaks." And he hesitated. "There's talk Garcia has a recording, something he thinks ties back to you." Jasmine shot up, striding to the window. "A recording," she muttered. "Elliot." She spun back, eyes blazing. "Find out what Garcia has. I want details, exactly what he's holding. And get me Elliot. Tonight." Marcus shook his head, urgent. "Jasmine, this is too far. If Garcia has evidence and it leaks, you don't just lose the seat. You lose everything." She smiled, thin and cold. "No, Marcus. If I move first, I lose nothing." The meeting with Elliot unfolded in an empty Arlington parking lot under a flickering street lamp. He leaned against a black sedan cigarette, glowing red in the dark. "You're losing control," he rasped. "Garcia, Lynch, Mendoza. They're not lightweights. They're closing in. Jasmine's fists clenched. You told me they wouldn't find anything. You told me you had this contained. Elliot shrugged. I control what I can. But you pushed too far. The rumors lynch Mendoza Garcia, they worked, but they point back to you. They know you're behind it. Jasmine stepped closer, her voice cutting. Then give me something to bury them. Not whispers. Evidence. Elliot dropped his cigarette, crushing it underfoot. You want dirt, fine. But the price rises, and if you fail, I don't fall with you. He handed her a thick envelope. Inside, fabricated evidence. Garcia's shady campaign deal. Mendoza's secret loan from a foreign donor. Lynch's private meeting with a lobby group he won't admit to. Use it, and they collapse. But one wrong move, and don't call me again. Jasmine clutched the envelope, feeling a serpent coil in her hand. I don't make mistakes, she said coldly. Do your part. I'll handle the rest. The next morning, Garcia, Lynch, and Mendoza met again, this time in a cramped Capitol Hill office. On the table, emails from aides, a copy of the recording, and a list of burner accounts tied to the rumors. I've got a reporter at the Hill willing to hold the story, Mendoza said. But once we have evidence, he'll blow it wide open. We need to move fast before Jasmine strikes again. Lynch, usually calm, slammed his palm on the table. Enough, I want to confront her directly. If she thinks she can destroy us, let's show her we won't go quietly. Garcia shook his head. Not yet. Confronting her only tips her off. We need undeniable proof. At that same moment, Jasmine opened Elliot's envelope in her office. Inside lay financial records, emails, even surveillance images. A war chest, enough to bring down all three. But she knew unleashing them meant entering the most dangerous territory yet. She called Marcus, set up a discreet meeting with a reporter, someone trustworthy but willing to print big, and get Ramirez in line. Fully. Marcus looked at her with dread. Jasmine, if you drop this, there's no coming back. She smiled, icy, assured. I don't need a way back. I need a win. Moments after he left, her phone buzzed. Another anonymous message they're closing in. Step back or lose everything. Her heart thudded. The alliance of Garcia, Lynch, and Mendoza was tightening the noose. And somewhere in the shadows, Elliot watched, ready to cut her loose if she fell. The fight was no longer a campaign. It was survival. The morning of the vote, the air in Rayburn's grand chamber was heavy as lead. Lawmakers filled the rows, their whispers sharp, their eyes wary, sunlight slicing down through the tall windows onto polished wood floors. Jasmine Crockett entered in a fitted black suit, hair pulled high, smile bright and confident, the look of a warrior marching toward victory. In her mind, the number was clear: 14 votes. Enough to surpass Harrington, enough to beat them all. Weeks of buying favors, twisting arms, cutting deals, every maneuver had built to this. Today she would claim the ranking member seat of the Oversight Committee. She sat, her eyes sweeping the chamber. Subtle nods came her way. Ramirez, Wells, Hensley. In the corner, Marcus Tate held his iPad, giving her the slightest nod of reassurance. Everything on track. But then she saw Robert Garcia, upright, cold-eyed, a thick folder in his hand. Beside him sat Stephen Lynch and Carla Mendoza, faces grim as if they'd finally found the bullet that could bring her down. Chairman Grayson, the elder statesman presiding, struck his gavel. We begin, he said flatly. Today we vote for ranking member of Oversight. But first, I am told, there is a matter that must be addressed. Garcia rose, his voice cutting like a blade. Mr. Chairman, before the vote, I request the floor. There is information, serious information, that must be revealed. A chill ran Jasmine's spine, but her face stayed still, only an arched brow betraying her. What information, Robert? She said, smoothly daring him. If you have something to say it. Garcia didn't answer her. He strode to the podium, placed the folder down, and slid a USB into the projector. The screen behind him flickered an email. Subject line, planned a takedown. Lynch Mendoza Garcia. The sender masked, but the contents unmistakable step-by-step instructions on planting stories. Lynch as outdated Mendoza, tied to oil money. Garcia accused of embezzlement. The room fell dead silent. Jasmine's nails bit into her palm under the table. "What kind of stunt is this, Robert?" she said, evenly fighting to keep the tremor from her voice. Garcia's glare could cut glass. "This isn't a stunt. It's evidence. This email, along with messages and a recording, prove you orchestrated a smear campaign. You bribed colleagues, manipulated the press, and relied on a shadow source, someone named Elliot, to spread disinformation." Mendoza shot to her feet, fury in her voice. "I've spent weeks clearing my name from that oil money lie. You tried to destroy me, Jasmine, for a chairmanship." Lynch, calmer but no less damning, spoke next. "You thought you could manipulate all of us. You've gone too far, Crockett." The chamber erupted. Murmurs, accusations, shifting loyalties. Eyes turned on Jasmine with suspicion, even disgust. Ramirez avoided her gaze. Hensley shook her head, lips pressed tight. Wells, promised a subcommittee chair, simply stood and walked out. Jasmine rose, voice sharp, desperate to regain control. "This is a setup," she shouted, finger-stabbing the air at Garcia. "You have no real evidence. Emails can be forged. Recordings doctored. I have fought for justice for the people, and you're twisting lies because you're afraid to lose." Garcia's smirk was ice. "You want evidence? Listen." He tapped his laptop. A recording filled the room, the distorted but unmistakable voice of Jasmine Crockett, speaking to a man. "I need something bigger to bring down Garcia. Anything. Real or not." The chamber gasped. Grayson slammed the gavel, his voice booming. "Enough, the vote is suspended. These allegations must be investigated. Crockett, Garcia, Lynch, Mendoza remain. Everyone else clear the room." As lawmakers filed out, Jasmine felt the floor tilt beneath her. 14 votes gone. Deals, promises, secrets, all slipping from her grasp. She glanced at Marcus in the corner, frozen panic in his eyes. She wanted to scream. Instead, the voice in her head whispered the truth. They have evidence. They've won. Back in her office, Jasmine slammed the door, hurling her briefcase across the desk and spilling cold coffee. Marcus followed, voice raw. "Jasmine, we need a plan. Garcia already sent the tape to the Hill. They'll publish tomorrow? Once the press runs with this." "Shut up, Marcus," she roared, eyes blazing. "Don't tell me what I already know. Find Elliot. Now." Marcus shook his head. "I tried. No answer. His phone's dead. I told you he's no ally. He's a ghost. And now he's gone." She clenched her fists, forcing back rage. "Then we do this ourselves. Reach Ramirez, Hensley, anyone left. Tell them this is Garcia's plot to eliminate me. Tell them I'll sue if they don't stand with me." Marcus's voice broke. "They won't listen. You've lost them." She turned to the window, not seeing the view, only the shattered board of her strategy. Her voice dropped, quiet but defiant. "I haven't lost. Not yet. Not ever." That night, in a small bar on the edge of D.C., Garcia, Lynch, and Mendoza sat around a battered table. A new stack of documents lay before them, emails, texts, financial traces linked to Elliot. "We did it," Mendoza said, her relief tempered with caution. "She can't come back from this." Lynch shook his head. "Don't underestimate her. Jasmine is cornered, and a cornered beast lashes out." Garcia nodded grimly. "I've already handed everything to a trusted reporter. If she tries to push back, we'll bury her with more." She's finished. In her office, Jasmine typed one last encrypted message. "Where are you, Elliot? I need you. Now." The reply came back, instant recipient does not exist. She stared at the error message, heart pounding. Elliot had vanished. She was alone, staring into the storm. She opened the last envelope he'd given her, files on Harrington, Garcia, Lynch, Mendoza. Secrets sharp enough to destroy them all, but now useless. The vote room had changed everything. Her mask was gone. Still, as she shut the laptop, A spark flickered. If she couldn't win the seat with votes, she would win another way. She picked up her phone, dialing a number from the past, a reporter who owed her. "I've got a story for you," she said, her voice cold as steel. "About Garcia. And I want it on the front page." The game wasn't over. Not for Jasmine Crockett. The Rayburn chamber felt like a courtroom. Chairman Grayson's gavel cracked through the suffocating air, his voice cold and final. Vote tally: Robert Garcia, 18. Stephen Lynch, 3. Carla Mendoza, 2. Jasmine Crockett, 0. 0. The word hit like a blade to the chest. Jasmine sat, frozen fingers laced under the desk nails, biting so deep into her skin they drew blood. Hours earlier, she had believed she held 14 votes, a fragile alliance of promises, threats, and dirt. Now nothing. Across the room, allies turned, deserters avoided her eyes. Ramirez bowed her head. Hensley pressed her lips tight. Wells stood and slipped out without a word. One by one, they erased her. Robert Garcia is elected ranking member of the Oversight Committee. Congratulations. Scattered applause followed, but to Jasmine, it was laughter, knives in disguise. Garcia rose, shook hands with Lynch and Mendoza. Their reluctant alliance had triumphed, not only by vote count, but by tearing away her mask. The leaked emails, texts, and recordings had shredded the persona of a justice warrior she had so carefully built. Jasmine stood, adjusted her blazer, and strode out with her head high, though inside a storm raged. Behind her, the whispers began: Crockett, the fallen star. The schemer exposed. By noon, the press was circling. The Washington Post. From hope to ruin, the fall of Jasmine Crockett. Politico, broken ambition Crockett. Exposed in Oversight scandal. On Twitter, Crockett collapse trended, filled with knives from former admirers. I thought she was the future. Turns out she was just another fraud. The champion of justice image built on fiery speeches, glitzy fundraisers, cable news soundbites, now ash. Back in her office, Jasmine sat pale in the glow of her laptop. Marcus Tate lingered in the doorway, voice ragged. "Jasmine, you need to respond. A statement. Anything." She shook her head, voice low. "Respond, Marcus, they have the goods. Emails, recordings. It's real." "I'm finished." Marcus slammed his palm on the desk. "Not finished. You still have options. Ramirez hasn't spoken. Hensley hasn't gone public. We can leak Garcia's dirt." "Enough," she snapped, springing to her feet, eyes burning. "Don't you get it? They're gone. Ramirez ignores my calls. Hensley calls me reckless. I have no one." Marcus stared at her, despair in his eyes. "So what now? You just sit here while they bury you." Jasmine turned to the window. Capitol Hill sprawled below, once her battlefield, now a graveyard of her ambition. Yet even in silence, an idea sparked. Defeat was not the end. Elsewhere, Garcia, Lynch, and Mendoza sat in a closed meeting room. The air tense but lighter. "We did it," Mendoza said, sipping coffee. "She's no longer a threat. Oversight is ours." Garcia shook his head. "Not so fast. Jasmine doesn't quit. She'll strike back." Lynch's tone was grave. "I've seen her type. They don't stop. We need eyes on her. Make sure she doesn't claw her way back." Garcia tapped the table. "I've already tipped off the Hill. If she tries anything, we bury her deeper. And I've asked a contact at the FBI to trace Elliot. He's the key." Elliot, Mendoza muttered. "If we don't unmask him, she'll use him again." Garcia's jaw tightened. "He's a ghost. No name, no trail. But I'll find him." That night, Jasmine made the call. "Lena, I've got a story. Garcia, dirty campaign dealings. You want it exclusive." On the other end, Lena hesitated. "Jasmine, you're radioactive. If this doesn't stick, we both go down." "It sticks," Jasmine said flatly. "Meet me tonight." In a Georgetown cafe, she slid a folder across the table. Financial records, emails, photos. Garcia isn't clean. Lena skimmed the contents, skeptical. If I print this, they'll trace it back to you. Jasmine's smile was ice. I have nothing left to lose. But before Lena could publish, an anonymous email exploded across Washington sent to The Hill, The Washington Post, and Politico. Subject line: The truth about Jasmine Crockett. Attached a trove of files, her emails with Elliot recordings of her ordering smear campaigns, even surveillance video of her meeting him in a parking garage. The sender called themselves Someone Who Knows. But the precision, the cruelty, it bore Elliot's signature. By morning, D.C. was on fire. The Hill, Jasmine Crockett, betrayed by her own source. The video was devastating. Jasmine taking the envelope from Elliot, caught on tape. Even Lena, once ready to print Garcia's dirt-cut ties. In her apartment, Jasmine stared at the footage replaying on TV. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters, old colleagues, but she ignored them. Marcus called, panicked. Jasmine, Elliot sold you out. He dumped everything. You have to run now. Run, she whispered hollowly. Run where? She typed a final message to Elliot. Why, the server spat it back. Recipient does not exist. Elliot was gone. That afternoon, party leaders summoned her. The verdict was brutal. You've shamed the caucus, an elder snapped. Resign or we'll force you out. She didn't fight. The game was over. That night, she packed her office photos, plaques, dreams of power left behind. On Twitter, she posted one last line. I fought for what I believed. Washington does not forgive, but I will not apologize. Then she locked the account. Jasmine Crockett stepped into the D.C. night. Her reputation, her allies, her career gone. Elliot, once her secret weapon, her final betrayer. All that remained was a flicker in her eyes, not hope, but defiance. Washington had broken her, but it would not define her. One day somewhere, Jasmine Crockett would rise again. For now, she was only a shadow swallowed by the dark.